Hello and welcome. My name is Nate from Video Games Recon, and in this episode I've decided to experiment with the format of this show. As per usual, we're still going to be recapping this week's popular culture and gaming news, recording either on a Friday or Saturday and publishing on a Saturday or Sunday. But this time I'm going to pick 4 to 6 main stories that take my fancy, then move on to a quickfire news round, briefly discussing things that are of less interest to me personally or I don't have the time to cover, and then finally ending with a topic of the show, going a little more in depth on the news and my thoughts on a particular topic. Anywho, enough jibber jabber, without any further ado, let's do it to it. At one of 2 major tech events this week, Nintendo announces a new mobile game, Super Mario Run, to debut first on iOS in December at Apple's keynote event whilst featuring the iPhone 7, and is set to come out at an undisclosed date later on Android. Being headed by the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, famous for being instrumental in producing many of Nintendo's classic games, ranging from Super Mario Bros. To Ocarina of Time and beyond, discussing in an interview with GameSpot how he's been working on the project every day in collaboration with DNA, and how they really want to focus on making this a more traditional game but specific to mobile, leveraging its strengths and making it a game that you can play one-handed and still keep the essence of what makes a Mario game a Mario game. What this means exactly for the control scheme is unclear, as to me Mario is a very tactile experience, and how that will translate on a touchscreen is up in the air. That said, this endless runner that meets a Sonic game and obviously a Mario game looks pretty interesting, and is going to be released free to play with what seems like optional paid for map packs. Personally, Pokemon Go didn't really speak to me, but this floats my boat a lot more. My thoughts on this game are that it will sink or swim dependent on the control scheme, and you can bet Nintendo is expecting it to swim after the success of Pokemon Go, as you have analysts coming out of the woodwork saying that Super Mario Run will reach 1 billion downloads in its lifetime, which just sounds outright ridiculous. But when you keep in mind that Pokemon Go has reached 500 million downloads at this point in time, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. So it seems Nintendo's foray into mobile gaming really is turning out profitable indeed. And on a side note, Super Mario Run will not feature any connectivity with the Wii U and Project NX. Sticking with Nintendo for now, the previously delayed Pokemon Plus hardware has a new worldwide release date of September 16th, for those of you who have already pre-ordered. Personally, I'm not super sure on the purpose of this product, as although it's supposed to be more discreet, less nerdy, and easier to play without getting your phone out, it's super obvious, looking just as nerdy, and you have to get your phone out anyway to move items to and from your inventory. And can't catch any new Pokemon, only stronger versions of the same Pokemon you already own. Maybe I'm just getting old and this game doesn't really speak to me, but this tech seems kinda like a chocolate teapot, not only taking the game aspects out of the game, but also gimping its feature set, making it a missed opportunity in my eyes. That said, it appears this thing has and will continue to sell like hotcakes. And with a possible 500 million install base and Nintendo's ability to make great toys, Amiibo being case in point, you can see why this will be at very least a financial success. But I guess we'll just have to wait a few days for the reviews to come out to see if the same is said for its critical success. Mass Effect Andromeda gameplay is shown off at Sony's PlayStation event, and although only really a teaser, was easily one of the best and most interesting things to be shown at Sony's somewhat lackluster event. Also, Mass Effect Andromeda was one of the first new games to be announced with support for the PS4 Pro, formerly known as the Neo, but will still feature a lock at 30 frames per second on both the original PS4 and the Pro. So you'd have to imagine any improvements targeted on the Pro will be in resolution and graphical fidelity, which seems to be a trend with most games on the PS4 Pro going forward, which in my opinion is a shame, discluding competitive multiplayer for reasons of an unfair advantage, that is. And with that, there will obviously be a theme appearing through a lot of the news stories this week, making it quite obvious to what the inaugural topic of the show is likely to be. Although oddly PlayStation VR didn't feature at the recent PlayStation event, some new news has come out not only discussing bundles available for PSVR, but also discussing that how presumably all headsets will come with a demo disc like in the olden days and will feature 8 demo versions of full VR games to sample. Some of the most notable games confirmed for European markets are Drive Club, Riggs, Headmaster and Eve Valkyrie. This is most definitely an inspired decision, as not only does a demo disc provoke nostalgia in the older gamer, it also gives the consumer the chance to try other games that it might then encourage them to buy. And if you think back to something like the Wii, the most popular game on that system was Wii Sports, essentially a glorified demo disc and proof of concept. And although that was a much more bespoke experience, it's still a smart move for Sony to give extra content away for starved PlayStation VR gamers to sink their teeth into.
Fire sale!
Okay, let's start off the quickfire round. According to the rumour mill, the Nintendo NX's supposed September announcement has been pushed back to sometime in October, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. Which, if the case, you'd have to assume is a move to give the NX space from the recent PS4 Pro announcement. A remastered collection of the LEGO Harry Potter games is set to hit the shelves in October. Curiously though, has only been confirmed for the PS4 at this point. This game is most likely going to be loosely tied in with the release of the upcoming film Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, coming out on October 18th. But why it appears to only be on the PS4 remains to be seen. Perhaps the Xbox version has been shrouded in Harry's cloak of invisibility. Finally, a release date of again on October 18th has been set for Rocksteady's long-awaited Return to Arkham collection. Now set to be a remaster of the first 2 Arkham games and not including Batman Origins and Arkham Knight, which is a shame but makes sense for what they're trying to do here. That classic 90s cartoon biker mice from Mars is back in the guise of a turn-based strategy game. Because who the fuck knows why? Money, I guess? Rejoice Modern Warfare 2 fans, there's actually something for you to be hyped about when it comes to Infinite Warfare, as the tactical nuke kill streak is set to make a return. Not that it particularly affects us mere mortals who rarely if ever have the skill set to achieve a tactical nuke. Speaking at PAX, Final Fantasy XV director Tabata discusses how Final Fantasy is set over a 10-year period and how Noctis's appearance will gradually change to reflect that, so as to resemble his father somewhat. I don't know about you, but I think this sounds like a pretty cool idea, and I can't really think of many games spanning such a space of time. The spiritual successor to Castlevania, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, gets delayed till 2018, which is a shame and quite the wait, and after the somewhat critical success of its most recent demo. Let's just hope this doesn't mean it's going the same way as other Deep Silver published game, Mighty No. 9. Bethesda says it wants Fallout 4 PS4 mods. Yeah, no shit, who doesn't want PS4 mods? Well, according to Bethesda, Sony doesn't want Fallout 4 mods. Well, not enough to change its policies giving Bethesda greater mod support. This is such an own goal for PlayStation. I mean, it's not like Sony to make questionable decisions these days, is it? Oh, wait, scratch that last comment.
Time for Topic of the Show.
And now for our first topic of the show, and elephant in the Sony meeting room, that is the September 7th announcement of the PlayStation Slim and Pro. First off, what a fucking snorefest. That has to be one of the most boring conferences I've seen from a big console manufacturer, period. I know this isn't E3 and is somewhat business related, but it's like they forgot everything they'd learned about showmanship in the past few years. And if the argument is that it was more about business than consumers, then why stream it in the first place? Why not just let the press report on it? You know, the guys who can actually see the 4K and high dynamic range in action, as opposed to us muggles who had no clue as to the tangible difference these improvements are supposed to make. I was actually quite excited for this conference beforehand, even hearing rumours that the console could be modular and upgradable. But no, as it turns out, all the news about specs and features had been leaked months ago, and that news didn't excite me then and still doesn't now. The whole selling point of these consoles seemed to be geared towards price, 4K resolution and HDR, and aside from the price, the other two selling points fell well short. As most people don't have 4K TVs with HDR support, and the PS4 Pro can't achieve native 4K anyway, instead relying on some fancy upscaling algorithm, whilst the HDR argument for the PS4 Slim and Pro is rendered mute as HDR support is going to be patched into all PS4s in the next update. Which, although somewhat impressive, as I didn't think such a thing was possible, it still negates it as a selling point. If they'd have come out and doubled down on improved graphical fidelity and super sampling for 1080p and an improved VR experience as well as 4K HDR and possibly improved frame rates, and although this would have annoyed some original PS4 owners, at least it would have given a good argument for getting a PS4 Pro over sticking with what you've got, going for a Slim, or even ignoring the platform altogether and going for a gaming PC or an Xbox One S. The whole message was confusing to me. Some things I'm still unclear on, even as someone who's took the time to look into specifics. Like, for example, are all future games going to support the Pro, or is it completely up to third-party developers? As the current list of PS4 Pro supported games only features 10 released games and 14 upcoming games, which doesn't sound like the greatest value proposition. And as they talked about value proposition in the conference, let's discuss that. As at this point I struggle to see it, just like I struggled to see the difference HDR made in the Days Gone demo. You know what I'm talking about. Firstly, we're only just learning about HDR, so that'll be a tough sell for a while. Secondly, not that many people own 4K TVs, and super sampling and graphical improvements on 1080p displays were barely talked about. And if you're super bothered about power and graphical fidelity anyway, then you're in the wrong ecosystem and should be a PC gamer, or at least wait for the Scorpio, as this system really appears to be a half step and competes much more with the Xbox One S than anything else. Whereas the Scorpio is much more of a generational leap from its predecessor in terms of power. And on a side note, a massive oversight that is baffling is in terms of no Ultra HD Blu-ray support. I understand this is to keep costs down, but this feature alone has sold countless Xbox One S consoles due to how expensive 4K Blu-ray players are in comparison. Personally for me, every argument Sony makes for the Pro, aside from HDR and possible VR improvements, which I don't care about yet, are arguments as to why I should stick with my standard PS4 for first-party exclusives and concentrate on my PC for third-party games, as it has roughly the same sort of power as a PS4 Pro anyway. And instead I should just sit back and wait to see what the Xbox Scorpio or PS5 has to offer, as these in-generational half-step upgrades are becoming cost prohibitive. And the first new console that's really going to get my juices flowing will be the first console to become fully modular, with a limited amount of upgradable components so as not to become too difficult for developers to program for, but will still become more in line with PCs in terms of performance and gradual upgrade costs. Now, I know it looks like I've been trashing on the PS4 Pro, which is somewhat true, but I do respect the fact that there is a small audience that doesn't have a PS4 yet and or has a 4K TV with HDR support, that this console is designed to appeal to, and another audience that has faith in Sony to support 1080p displays with super sampling and improved fidelity. But I, like most people, am not one of them, so I can only really discuss my opinion and this topic from mine and most people's vantage point, even though to a minority this truly does offer a good value proposition. But nonetheless, you'd still have to agree Sony's message on the PS4 Pro and its ecosystem as a whole has become muddled and confusing, and their conference was dull as dishwater. On the upside though, The silver lining is that Sony's probably not alienated its current 40 million PS4 install base yet, as most are uninterested in the PS4 Pro and fail to see its current worth, and those that do will probably buy this system. And that I'm sure this will be a financial success. I don't expect units to fly off shelves after the initial pre-orders, but people like to buy tech, PS4 fanboys will buy it regardless, the Pro's not that much more expensive than the Slim model, and people's original PS4s will break eventually, so not all doom and gloom. But with PS4 outselling its best ever console at this point in its life cycle, it seems like an own goal, an unforced error on Sony's behalf in terms of rocking the boat and confusing the message to the general PlayStation audience. Anywho, that's my humble opinion on the PS4 Pro and PlayStation's recent event. What do you guys think about the Slim and Pro? Feel free to hit me up with your thoughts in the comments. Just don't be a dick about it if you happen to disagree. It's perfectly fine to disagree with people and put your opinion across, but it's not okay to be an unsufferable prick. Just saying. So, that was my recap of the week's gaming news or points of interest. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff I'll miss each week, so feel free to post anything you're into that I missed in the comments section for discussion. Anywho, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe for more BS of a similar nature. Thank you and goodbye.